because we've seen that influx of folks that have now transitioned up into our North Country, as we call it. I always said as a kid when I went up to Pittsburgh that eventually someday we'd all have to move up that way because we'd all feel that we were being crowded to the north. But as people have started to build up and settle in these areas, we see more and more activity happening out there. Folks commuting to work, the services that are actually out there for our local schools and work that people do, heading to doctors' offices and stores and everything. Seems like everybody wants to get out and about nowadays. That way, the services that are provided by our emergency services out there, mail, trash, you think about everything now, people actually get home pickup now of their trash and those types of activities where maybe years ago they never did. We now find that we have, police that work added hours. We have now fire and EMS that certainly have more and more activity happening because of the influx of folks that have moved into the area and the demand on different services. Commerce certainly is a big factor as well. You've got different trades that are happening and different commerce that's going on in your communities.
Tourism is really exploded.
Tourism.
Yeah,
especially with everything that happens here. Folks that are headed to the north and going skiing and using our mountains and our beaches and skiing and that stuff. Excuse me. On the recreational side of things, plenty of folks that are doing that, getting out and biking and cycling and doing those types of things.
Basically, since COVID, we've all seen a massive influx in people coming to this area, buying houses. What they used to be seasonal are now full-time. You probably have seen it on your trash recycling services, your water usage, anything. Just your numbers are up. Your school system probably has been inundated with more kids than they ever had been before. Really, seeing that go the other way. A lot of the towns around here have seen the opposite of that. Yeah. Wow, no kidding. That's a rarity. I don't hear that very often.
Yeah, I think there's been a drop in some of the population, but we've also seen that folks that have either retired now or families have grown, and folks have now kind of come to the area as well. That way, like Bruce said, I noticed when I was in Alton, right after COVID, with folks that ended up coming and settling into the area that had second homes, and then made them now their primary residence because of the change. They wanted to get out of the cities and wanted to come to the North Country for that. So on that side of it. So we're seeing more and more activity on our roadways. So what happens, when the roads are, and there's a list of many things. Of course, we're right in the middle of winter, and we've been seeing a lot of activity that's happened there with the winter activities there when they're snow covered and icy. Right, folks, if in fact they are snow covered and icy, they're going to call the town hall, or they're going to call the highway department, and certainly want to have those maintained and taken care of. Just like when you have any of these other weather events that directly affect our roadway networks.
And just understand the importance of your roads. People probably don't think about it very often, but what they provide for you as townspeople in services, as well as tourism and everything else. And when things don't go well, the roads are bad, there's blockages, there's ice, that has an effect on things. So that's just something to think about as we move further into the presentation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things that affect that. When your roadway network is impaired, or it's in, something happen to it, then it causes that breakdown. And it's almost like if in fact you end up having the internet go out, or you end up having the power go out. It's the same type of thing, that there's a direct impact on services overall, and can cause some confusion that ends up happening. Probably the most key thing in this situation of your roadway network itself is, and I hope everybody believes this, is that your roadway network is in fact your most valuable asset that you have in town. Now, we all know that fire trucks cost, over $500,000 now, and some of them cost $1 million in that situation. But even the fire station full of all the fire apparatus down there is your roadway network, and we'll be able to show you a rough idea or a rough estimate as to what your value of your roadway network here is in Madison, just based upon what your road miles are that way. But once again, as we say up here, it's an integral part of everyday life, and it is your largest asset that you have here in town, and your most valuable asset, really. So there's a real focus that really needs to be there as far as the maintenance of it and the preservation of it, and trying to extend and get the best bang for your buck is your investment of your financial commitment to it with town funds and taxation on that side of it. There can be all kinds of different significant impacts that end up happening, both positive and negative, on your roadway network itself, as far as any of those aspects of your town activities, and making sure that it's difficult because years ago, what used to be, when I first took over as the road agent, it was always about the 10 worst roads in town. So there was always a list, and it was called the 10 worst roads in town. And you pecked away at those, right? I mean, Bruce has been around. He visits towns in his business, and it's about, well,
Worst first.
Worst first. And the theory is that the education side of things now, and the pendulum has shifted to look at preserving the best in the good roads, so that you extend those life cycles, and those worst roads end up becoming and stay in the worst roads until you can make a capital investment in those roads themselves and bring them back up to your condition.
So this would be a good time to maybe intervene here, but is there some talk of maybe doing a bond possibly for some road work? Did I hear something about bonding at all? No. Okay.
There has been mention of it, but
Okay.
there's not been any serious discussion.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we can dive a little
I'm
deeper.
aware.
We can dive deeper into that. We also want you to think about a couple of other buzzwords: asset management. If you buy a car, what do you do to that car, right? You maintain it. It's an asset. A grader, a fire truck, a police cruiser, it doesn't matter. A building, you do everything to maintain that asset, and you need to treat your roads exactly the same way. So we're going to dive further into that as well. So remember those words.
And it used to be that, you made such an investment in your roadway network, and or some of these roadways ended up starting out that they were just gravel roads, and eventually they got paved, and they may have gotten paved in many different ways. It may have been that they just had liquid emulsion put to them, and then they, rolled in gravel and stone or put sand on them, and they built them up, and then they eventually maybe then put hot mix asphalt on them and added to them. And then over time, that's not a real healthy road, because some of the underpinnings in some of those roads may have been stumps, rocks, logs, those types of things, and over time they deteriorate, and Mother Nature and this freeze-thaw cycle that we have in the North Country starts to push them up through. Excuse me. So, that's an issue, that over time those things end up happening. If you rebuild a road from top to bottom, once again, major capital investment. Per mile, you're looking at least 1.3, if not 1.5 million dollars per mile sometimes now to box out a road completely and rebuild it and put it into what we would call, the standards of road building that ends up happening by utilizing some of those guides that end up coming forth through, like New Hampshire DOT. They actually have a spec guide in doing that. So when we bid projects and those types of things, they utilize that type of information in order to do that.
That's not necessarily from neglect, road neglect. That could be, like you said, the initial base of the road
Exactly.
was, it used to be an old fire trail, and it got developed on top of what was
Yep.
already there, and now over
Some-
time.
Right. Some of them could have been cart paths years ago, and they materialize into roads. They've gotten wider. Even just a regular road over time with paving and everything else, they get wider. Now you start to see that there's some deterioration that ends up happening sometimes to your pavement on the shoulder areas there, because they've started to just, they've gotten overlaid with pavement. This thinner on the sides maybe than it was in the center, and those types of things. So there's potentially can be some deterioration that ends up happening.
Roads
over
of,
time.
roads of evolution. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what you just mentioned, is that it started out as one thing and has become something else, and that something else is really not equipped to handle the types of road traffic that we see. Heavier trucks than we've ever seen, more traffic than you've ever seen. So you're very
So we have to
right.
address that accordingly. If it was boxed out and built from scratch
Yep.
correctly, then it should be more of a maintenance issue. If it's a road that's wasn't really designed to be heavily traveled, and now it is, we have to maybe look at that as a brand new project that we
Which
have to try
That
to.
is where the bonding comes into play, because if you use your annual maintenance paving budget of whatever it is, a couple 200,000, 225,000, the full boxing out, the full reconstruction, you will completely go backwards. The rest of your network will detonate in the time frame that you're repairing those other roads, so you'll lose everything. And we'll show you that on paper in a few minutes, but exactly right.
Yeah, that's why, a lot of communities end up figuring out, that worst road or that road that really needs to have that major attention and major construction done to it, that they figure out what that's gonna be and then figure out how they're gonna tackle that situation in order to make that improvement. And I call it more of a capital investment that way. Not that, doing your regular road projects at between $200,000 and $400,000 a year for your paving isn't a capital investment. It is, but we like to look at that as more of a preservation and more of a way to extend life cycle of
I
pavement.
just brought it up because I just want the folks in town to understand that it's not neglect on the behalf of the DPW
Right.
necessarily, that there's an issue with the road, that sometimes it's the way the road started out. And we're coming into that time where we're seeing more and more damage to the road that was never built properly in the beginning. It's been improved as people move in and the demand is higher for the use of the road.
And just like Bruce said, we think about, if you look around, this community, and I mean, just me riding into it, I mean, I spent, a long time in Carroll County, and I was a deputy sheriff for 4 years in Carroll County and worked and patrolled this area and everything. And I look at just my ride up here today, and I was up here a year or two ago as well. But once again, you just see more and more that things have been built up, or a house is actually, looks quite a bit different. I mean, what used to be the store down there in the center, down by the lake, is now looks like it's more of a larger apartment type building, so it's like, wow, things have really changed. And every time something like that happens, we talk about these different roads, especially a local road, in the buildups that end up happening, you got cement trucks and dump trucks and other things happening. We talk about now with rubbish pickup and people having that, so now you've got all of a sudden you've got a front loader or a packer, garbage truck running out to different people's houses and picking up trash at the end of the driveways, and now they're driving on the edges of the road, so you have that extra weight, where years ago it used to be a mom and pop type of thing, where a guy with a pickup truck would throw a few bags of trash in the back end but now it's a big, huge vehicle, and that impacts your roadway network.
Yeah,
And you're exactly right.
And I have over 30 years history working in this town, specifically this town, and I remember some of just the dead-end roads by the camps, by the lake and stuff. We'd go in and shape the gravel and just spray liquid asphalt on it, put some sand on it, and it was better than a gravel road, and it was completely acceptable for just a couple of houses that were there. But we all know that's all changed now. It's all developed and changing all the time. So not neglect, but change.
Yeah. So Bruce, I don't know, do you want to walk through
So we were told that you have roughly 29 miles of paved road in town. Am I somewhere in the ballpark there? So that would be represented in the paved road of 29 miles and 20 miles of gravel. Hopefully I'm in the ballpark.
Close
So-
to just under 60 total, I believe.
Okay.
That's been brought up at meetings, and am I wrong? It's just under 60, 59 and change.
Yeah, it's,
All roads.
And that's only 49, so there's 10 miles
Yeah.
missing.
Missing somewhere.
Yeah, and I was under the impression there's about 26 to 27 miles of gravel.
yeah, and I think it's up to like 33, something like that for
Paved?
pavement now, yeah.
Well, for tonight,
Yeah, it's in the ballpark.
with the information I was
Yeah.
given,
That would make it lane miles, and if you're talking 60-something miles would be lane miles, so it's
Yes.
30 out and 30 back.
Is it possible that number is with class 6, where that
No.
says gravel?
No.
well, let's just show you for the example, because that's all I had to work with at the time, that you have 29 miles of paved road, okay, and 20 miles of gravel. Based upon, last year's cost of hot mix, which is around $105 per ton put in place, and somewhere around $30 a ton per gravel, which there's a lot of variability with, You know, what type of gravel? Did it get delivered? Did you haul your own? Was the grader done by you or somebody else? Just some real ballpark numbers to work with, okay? You're looking at the total miles and the pavement, an average pavement depth of 5.5 inches of your pavement, 12 inches of gravel. When you add up everything, your network of value is around $21,300,000. So when we say it's your largest asset, this is kind of how we're trying to show you what we're saying by that, okay? So let's say that you started today and this is your asset and it's got a 20-year lifespan for the pavement, so it depreciates by, you know, $1 million per year of depreciation on your roads every year. And most people don't have that kind of money to put back into their roads every year, but it just goes to show you that how to look at it as an asset instead of just saying we want to do $150,000 every year and level fund it for 15 years, how that's going to be really tough to maintain a good PCI, Pavement Condition Index, and I'll use that a few times today. So PCI, Pavement Condition Index, is a way of measuring how good your roads are and what level they are at. So that's just and we're going to do other things with this later on and play around with some things, but that's just showing your network value around $21 million.
Yeah. So if you want to maintain your network value, and say that you had a checkbook that was just, you know, like money coming off trees type of thing there, you would be looking at basically $1 million, $1 million plus a year in order to keep your network value up to par.
No signs, no drainage, no
Right,
pipes, yard rails, just strictly gravel and pavement.
Gravel and pavement. So that right there, you know, is basically that investment. Now, I've utilized these types of formats basically to help people build their roadway networks to try to get them back up so that they had a pretty good, you know, as a community, you have to decide what kind of roads you want to have. You want to have A roads. If you want A roads, you spend $1.something million, almost $1.1 million if you want to have A class roads. If in fact you want to have a scorecard, you know, a B or a B plus, B minus type of ratings, and you know, there's a little bit less of an investment that ends up happening, and understand that as the investment goes down in that situation there, you know, it kind of gets compounded to a certain degree in that depreciation that ends up happening. So
and the variability in the depreciation years varies from town to town to town and region of the state. Like Freedom in this area happens to be located on a very gravelly, sandy soil, well-draining soil, compared to somebody like Sugar Hill or Franconia or up in the Notch area where they have just glacial till and mud, to be real honest with you. Really, so their life expectancy in their pavements is much lower than some places that you would see around here, or places that are flat, not hilly, and drain well, because water is the enemy of all your roads. So something to keep. This is just a generalized average. Doesn't mean that your roads are going to last. It could be more, it could be less, but it's a generalization.
yeah, yeah. So that is that amount.
We kind of talked about different volumes of traffic that we've seen, more demand on all of our roads than we've ever seen. Inflationary, we're all aware of what inflationary stresses have been upon your budget, the cost of everything from plow blades, tires, fuel, windshield wipers, pavement, everything is inflated. So it's a complete struggle. Taxes keep going up and up and up. I'm a taxpayer. I'm in the same boat you guys are. I'm well aware of it, and none of us want to pay taxes. But I can tell you, hopefully when you leave here tonight, you realize that if you try to work in that preservation model, that you will save yourself tax money in the long run by a great deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, New Hampshire DOT, for an example, all their projects that they've been putting out, they've really had to reshuffle their deck. You know, they talk about the 10-year plan and those types of things there. They've had to make some serious revamping of that because of just these different things, the increase in materials costs, and all the other things that go along with it, really. Anything with bridges, all that
Everything.
stuff, it's really gone up astronomically So it's impacted everybody. It doesn't make a difference whether it's here in Madison or it's where I live in Loudon, those types of things. Lots of impacts in the inflationary side of things. So, pavement management.
Do you guys, have you done any sort of a road survey on any roads where they've collected the data on every road, the miles of road, the PCI, pavement condition index of the road? Has there been done in this town ever that you're aware of? I mean,
We had,
go ahead.
it was a few years back, we had a paving company with their salesmen go around and put together like a schedule.
Like a program kind of.
Yeah.
Which roads to go and hit.
Yeah, kind of as a guideline.
Yeah.
And we started picking away at that, but then it kind of started getting all over the place, so.
It's hard to stay on a schedule because there's so many variables, like the winter like we're having this year, and your budgets just get tossed to pieces. Scott, maybe
One
you
thing
need
that, sorry,
go ahead.
there's one thing that, I don't know if it came out of that survey or whatever, but someone started what we call the road CIP.
Yeah,
Where it had all the roads listed and it did have them color coded and stuff.
okay, that's
So
good.
there was,
That's something.
do you know if that came out of that?
I think that's where it all started.
Okay,
was that,
yeah.
yep.
Yeah, so there is actually like a giant spreadsheet.
So that's
that
something,
has-
that's a great starting point,
Yeah.
right? Because you need to know what you have and what condition it is so that you know where to start planning in the future with where you're gonna direct your money and how you're gonna use it, okay? So that's a good start. I also might maybe lean towards a little bit of having SAGE program get involved. I don't know what the cost is, it's not terribly much, you know better than I.
So the state, through the state actually, there's a road surface management program itself. It's actually centered out of UNH. But the local planning commissions basically started administrating those. So do you know which commission, local planning commission you folks have? Are you a member of a local planning group?
You mean our planning board or
We have our own
something bigger
planning
than that?
Like, yeah, but like, well, there's the Lakes Region area, there's
Southwest
might be the
Regional
North.
Planning Commission.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's different planning
Is that like
commissions.
North Country Council? Is that something? Because they're involved in our long-term plan.
In your long-term.
But I don't know
We'll
if
find
they-
out
Master
for you.
plan and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
Like we pay dues.
Yep, you pay dues to them.
Yeah, and I think, do we just?
We
start?
just signed up
We just
with them
signed up.
like a couple months ago.
Yeah, so those groups actually have
They're
been.
working on the master plan, just for context.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, a lot of times the planning commissions are involved in doing the master plan. So that group there, they've all been trained in how to do the road management surface plan itself, where they actually go out and do what Bruce is talking about. They measure all the roads. They do an actual assessment of those condition of the roads, and it's all based upon the surface. So we call it a windshield survey of the roads themselves. There's different characteristics that they record that data and put that in, and that helps you in being able to do that forecasting. So you can forecast your roads as to which ones are in fact really in bad shape, and then the ones that really just need a little extra love, as I call it, and being able to be preserved and kept. The idea about when we talk about preservation versus the ones that have actually gone by the wayside and that are really gone really, really bad is that the idea is to try to do whatever you can to that surface in order to try to keep the water out of it, is probably the biggest thing, is trying to keep the water out of our surfaces of our roads. So that's sealing up the cracks in the roads, especially when they first start, and trying to do those types of treatments in order to get that out of there so that the water sheds off, it gets to the ditches and gets to the drainage and doesn't go into the road bed and cause what we've actually seen now with this winter is that there's a lot of frost and there's been a lot of rain. We've had to use a lot of de-icing to be able to take care of some of these winter storms, and that just drives that frost into the ground and heaves up and really raises havoc with our roads. But in order to capture that asset and to collect that data, that is one of the programs. The many different engineering groups as well provide that service. It costs money for that. So there's usually a fee involved, but if you have a town planner, not a town planner, a town engineer that is involved, sometimes towns contract an engineering service in order to do that. And what they end up doing is they can perform this type of service as well.
And it also gives you a yardstick, so you get an initial PCI condition index for your whole town. And then as you manage your asset that we talked about, you can see where that PCI moves up or down based on your level of funding for the asset over a period of time. Does that make sense? So they also give you, like, I think 3 different scenarios, if I recall, what you're doing now, what you could do with this amount of dollars, and what you could do with the next level of dollars, and see where that might take your PCI upwards depending on level of funding.
Yeah, what your actual investment is
Something to think about.
going to be. You know, I mean, some communities, you know, it's been X amount of dollars and it's stayed pretty steady over the years. In other words, they've said, listen, we're going to spend $250,000 or $300,000 a year on our roads, and that's what we're going to spend. And they've kept that the same amount for 10, 20 years. I
Yeah,
mean,
I've
you've seen
yeah,
in
10,
many
15
towns
years.
that they haven't increased that. They haven't taken inflation and built it in. They haven't taken any kind of an escalator with it, but that's just been what they've invested. But if you get the baseline of having this survey done of your roadway and that PCI number, you can see that by only investing this amount of dollars, your PCI number is here, you're going to see where it's going to go. And I guarantee you it goes down in that situation there. Now, we all say, listen, we don't have you know, the vault full of money either. So how do we try to tackle this, and how do we try to do that? This is part of our teachings that we do. We provide some of those techniques and opportunities in order to try to extend or stretch the dollar to make that happen.
Yep.
And being able to do that. But being able to go out and get that baseline survey information, some of that can be done in-house to a certain degree. I mean, I think it probably is actually probably done now to a certain extent. It just may not be formalized or be able to be put into that,
That's okay
that
too.
number. You know, I mean, by going out and getting measurements of roads, lengths, widths, and then general condition of them. Sometimes you just take a scale from 1 to 5, or maybe it's 1 to 10, and you screen your roads that way. That way, when I first started, that's what I did. Until I actually was able to get on the list and get involved in doing that. The Planning Commission that you pay dues to, I would encourage you to reach out to them, because they usually get funding from New Hampshire DOT to help support that, where they pick at least a community, if not several communities, based upon the money that they get, to provide that as a service to you to get you started. So in other words, they will do that initially. Every town that I've been in a leadership role, I've been able to achieve having that done for nothing to start with. Now, subsequent years, at years between 3 and 5, you have to actually have them come in, either them or somebody come in. You can sometimes have staff that can do that as well once they get trained in it, or if you have the ability to do that, to update that and keep it current, because you have to go back out and do another survey and see where you are.
I think it's a handy tool for town meeting whenever you're trying to get funding, especially if you have like a map and you put it up on a board and it's color-coded with, you know, yellow, red, blue, green, meaning some sort of condition based on the colors, and you really can see that visual of what we're talking about. And when this map looks like this now, but if we fund this amount of money, we can make the map look like this, more green and less red and yellow. So it's a handy tool to really put data to the tax dollars you're asking for.
Right. Yeah. It's really, really good to have, and if you can get it done for your dues, that's another good thing too, because people then would say, okay, we got some value out of those dues. I ran into the same thing in New Durham. When I went to New Durham, they weren't a part of the Stratford Regional Planning Commission, and they said we didn't see what we were getting for our money. And so I was able to show them that by paying their dues, they were actually able to get that taken care of. So that's a help.
So we took care of this, I think.
Yep.
And
So different things go into your projects. There's a lot of things that end up going into the projects themselves out there in putting this all together. It's a lot of work behind the scenes and all pieces that go into it.
kind of touch base with a network value that you have.
Yeah, we get the network value in there, that baseline. There's no doubt by getting a payment condition index that helps you out, because once again, people start to understand that as you as select board and as budget committee folks, when you say, hey, listen, we need to increase, and going from like 300,000 to even 350,000, by that $50,000 worth more of work that can be done in doing preservation to our roadways, we're going to see our PCI number either maybe stay the same because it's the inflation side, but it won't decrease, but maybe it will increase. That was one of the biggest things that my budget committee used to always ask me, is you're asking us to make incremental investments and increases in your road program every year. What are we getting out of it? How are we going to see that difference in that? And you show them that change in the PCI number, and that really
That's the
makes
measuring stick.
It's a real measuring stick. It's important to have.
What was the funding? I mean, I'm like 3 or 4 years ago, $200,000 ring a bells. Am I in the ballpark there?
It used to be, then it went up to 250.
250.
Last year was it 400?
400, I think.
It did get to 400 last
Yeah,
year.
and this year I think it's 420.
Okay.
And that's
Just
just,
not
20.
our paving.
that's just the warrant articles for outsourcing the
The
big
paving.
paving
Okay.
projects. And then there is a certain amount, not a lot in the paving line of the budget.
Okay. So you're all in annually with your block grant money and whatever else money you raise was somewhere in 2025 was $450,000 ballpark?
I don't recall the block grant, how much that was,
Okay.
but the warrant articles alone were about 400.
All right, that helped. I did 3 different scenarios at 250, 350, and 450 because I really wasn't sure, but just trying to clarify, that's all.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's,
yeah,
go ahead.
go ahead.
We joke about this, and I don't know how well you can see this, but this is a fairly brand-new paved road, and this road is really bad. Can anybody kind of make that out from where you are?
Killed some of the lights.
Awesome, thank you.
So let me ask you a question as you're looking at this picture here.
That's better.
It- You can obviously see that this pavement is distressed, correct? We all would agree with that?
Yeah.
Is this pavement distressed? Yes, because you've gone to the class and you know.
Yeah.
Why is it distressed?
Because it has the leaves filling up on the side and the water can't drain off.
You know what? I like that answer because that goes into pavement maintenance, is removal of water from the side, on the pavement, edges of the pavement. So the ditches don't have very well established ditches, but that's a great answer. But let me put it to you this way. Who heats with wood in their house? You do. So you walk in and you go light up the stove in the evening when you get home, so it hasn't been running all day long, you fire up that stove. What do you hear?
We hear the chimney,
You hear the pipe?
yeah,
And what is that pipe doing?
expanding probably.
Okay, right? So pavement is exposed to thermal cracking. The hot part of the summer, it expands just like a stovepipe, and as it cools, it contracts, right? So expands, contracts. When the pavement is brand new, it does it very well. If you had your driveway paved today, could you go out with a shovel and put it in there and peel it up with a shovel? No. Well, you could.
Around the edges,
If you could take a brand new piece of pavement on a driveway, you know how they put the tape across it because it's so soft?
Yeah.
You could take a shovel and drive it in and probably scoop some right out, right? Because it's it's soft, it's malleable,
Yeah.
all right? What happens to that pavement 10 years later? Could you go out and drive a shovel into it? No.
Depends on how cracked it is.
Well, without the cracks, just the pavement that's existing, you never get a shovel into it. So what has happened to that pavement in that 10 years lifespan? Say it again? It cured. Good, very good answer. And the curing process means it's become oxidized and it becomes brittle and stiff. So not only do we see the frost and heaves working on your pavement from the day it's brand new, this is brand new, to the point you get here, that it's moving. That pavement's always moving from the frost and the heaves, the thermal part of it, and we want to preserve the flexibility in your pavements, and we're going to get into how to do that. But just remember, just like when you buy a car and you drive it off the lot, it starts depreciating from day one, pavement is exactly the same thing.
Same thing. Yep.
So there's all kinds of distresses, right? There's a volume of traffic volume. Volume is heavier than ever before. So what's the new fad out there? I shouldn't say fad. What's the new trend with cars? Electric? Electric. Did you take the class?
No, I work in paving.
Oh man, awesome. So good. You'd be like a star in the class. So the loads of traffic is heavier, right? They're gonna turn trucks into electric trucks. What do you think those are gonna weigh up at to move the 100,000 pounds? So we already talked about sunlight, water, and air are all the 3 oxidizing factors that cause a pavement to stiffen. Water is everything in this business. If you don't remove the water from going into the top of your pavement, coming in from the bottom of your pavement and sitting at the sides of your pavement, everything that you and I discussed probably doesn't mean a lot because water ruins roads, period. End of story.
Yeah.
So you need to manage your water as best you can. Shady areas. A lot of times you see potholes develop in your shady areas, right? And you have to use more salt and sand in your shady areas. You guys see that this time of the year. There's also hot mix issues, construction issues. We talked about some of the bases are not what they ought to be because they are roads of evolution, right? And salt and frost. So this year especially, coming across Route 41, what's that like right now? So what's going on there?
That just got paved a couple of years ago.
So tell me what's happening. Why is it ride like it does?
Just the frosties.
It's more to it. Where is the frost heap located?
Right through the,
With the cracks,
right.
right? Every single crack is what we call tinting. So you've had so many small little storms, lots of rain, lots of salt, right? We've had tons of those. So every time that you melt that water, it goes into the cracks. And then it gets cold. And those cracks let water in, and all of a sudden it pops up, and it's called tinting. And this spring, whenever things start to thaw out, because you've got salty water down in your gravel underneath those cracks, we're gonna have some really bad differential frost heaves. I think the roads are gonna be, it depends on how fast it comes out, but it could be a very tough year with your frost. Those are all the things that are happening that we're trying to explain to you, that pavement maintenance in the long term will help with a lot of those things, and we'll get deeper into that.
Right.
So we're trying to get you to take a brand new road, and it's super counterintuitive to everybody. So you have a road that's brand new, it's in excellent condition, and we want you to spend dollars on it early in its life cycle up here, but spend small dollars, small treatments that cost little compared to working down here in the worst first area where you're rehabbing, boxing out, rebuilding roads is much more expensive down here than doing many treatments when the road's in good shape. And for taxpayers, it's very, very difficult for them to understand that. Because you just paved my road, why are you doing something to it right now? Why are you spending money on that road? It's about the things we talked about. It's about that longevity. It's about pavement preservation and keeping the sun, the air, the water out of it, okay? Keeping the flexibility in your pavements is going to extend the life of that pavement. And over the long haul of that road life, you'll spend less dollars on it. Can you go to the next couple slides? I think maybe it's the next one. It might be one more. We'll come back. Isn't it where's the one that has all the little... Is it one more after this one? No, it's not there. I thought we had another...
We cut so many of them out.
I
so-
know, I could lose track. It doesn't matter. But so we're trying to get you to use routine maintenance often, spend smaller amount per mile, but do it more often. And be honest with you, with this line right here, that was kind of the poor line, see the dotted line? That's the PCI phone call index, okay? Once the road gets below this line, whatever that PCI number is, 60,
Yeah.
65,
Generally it's
somewhere
60.
around 60, then your phone starts ringing and says, why is my road so rough?
Yeah.
And if you can stay above that, it helps a lot with not getting the phone calls and the complaints.
Right.
And you use a lot less materials. Think about, Justin, if your roads were smooth, springs, salt usage, just the wear and tear on your trucks from, you know, driving over everything and you spill your coffee out the window because you can't sit in the seat. All of that stuff adds up, and the taxpayers get that same benefit because they're not beating their cars up as well. Any questions at this point? We've thrown a lot of stuff at you here in a short amount of time. Question?
The previous slide where it showed kind of the dollar amounts, because it showed, you know, kind of $1 for the preservation piece of it, and then the 8 to 10 for the rehabilitation side of it. So
We're saying that it's to make a visual representation that when you do something to a brand new road, it's spending less money, or $1 of preservation, an ounce of an ounce of medicine's like a pound of cure. Is that, how's that go? I did it wrong. I so messed that up.
Pound of what?
Yeah. So that's what we're trying to represent with the $1 and the $8. They're not real numbers representing anything. It's just more of an analogy.
And you'll find that you're spending those short dollars in the preservation side of things, you can cover more miles in that situation as well. So when you think about your roadway network itself, you can actually cover more area using the shorter dollar at the $1 investment, so to speak, versus when you get to the $8 or $10, as you can imagine, it eats up your budget pretty fast. So when you end up having that happen, you can't cover those miles. And your network that you are starting to neglect and or not invest in is starting to deteriorate. And it gets to the point where at some point in time, it goes over the curve and starts to do this piece here, where it's coming down the slope, it gets steeper and steeper, and as it gets steeper, it's actually happening fast. So your years of service start to get shorter.
That's a great point. I didn't mention that.
that
When you've got a
situation.
brand new road, the deterioration is very slow. It happens, it's slowly. You don't really catch it until all of a sudden you're like, oh. And then you try to react, right? Instead of being proactive, being reactive. So do something before you see that crack develop. And that's counterintuitive as well. So we're going to throw something else at you, and I just want to give you a taste of it. It's called mile years, meaning that whatever paving preservation technique you use, and you spend the X amount of dollars at $200,000, $400,000 a year, you need to get as many mile years of service at what you did in 2026 as you have for pavement miles. And I just really blew your minds, but I'm going to show you. So if you have 30 miles of road, and it's say next year you only pave 1 mile of road, right? And it lasts for 30 years. It won't, but say it lasts for 30 years. Did I do that right? Yes. Yes. So you did 1 mile, 30 years. You got 30 years of service life out of that 1 mile. So you equaled, so that way your rest of your roads aren't deteriorating quicker than what you're putting back into it. So you're filling the pot quicker than it's being boiled out, in a way to say it. But I'll show it to you on paper. Yeah. And it is a hard concept, but Eric Thibodeau was the head engineer for the state of New Hampshire, and like 20 years ago, he did a class similar to this, and I saw that, and it really was hard to wrap your brain around it. Once you did, it's like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. That's it.
Right. The idea is that you want to be able to show to your taxpayers that the investment of your funds that you're actually putting into your roadway network is covering more miles than having a huge investment in only that 1 mile. So if you only take care of that 1 mile, the other miles are continuing to deteriorate. And that's where you're really going to find the impact over time. So the idea is to try to do as much as you can with those roadway miles with a variety of different types of treatments at different types of levels, and being able to do that. Basically operating in that routine maintenance and preventative maintenance window as much as possible and investing your dollars, in a high percentage of your capital plan into that side of your network to get your road miles that much more, that keeps your network that much more healthy.
And we'll get there with all the charts.
Yeah. So these are, this is kind of a breakdown of a rough, kind of a breakdown as to when we talk about those routine maintenance functions that end up happening. Those are things like what we call crack sealing that happens. So when you start to see the cracks that are starting to appear in a relatively newly paved road, as you was talking about, with 41, it was paved, within the last few years, and now all of a sudden it's all cracked up again. Very similar. I live in Loudon, 129 State Road was paved just 2 years ago, and it looks just as bad as it was when it was paved. It's all cracked, and it's, once again, cracks start from below and work their way up, and they basically kind of mirror themselves up through over time based upon our New England weather of freeze and thaw that ends up happening. So the idea is to do whatever you can to crack seal that right from the day one, and following your roadway network through and doing crack seals. There's different appropriate times to do it. It's not when a road's all cracked up. You don't want to be doing that with a crack seal. There's fog seals that end up happening. It's another type of a sealant that ends up happening, very similar to your driveways, right, Bruce? Would be a
Yeah,
kind of an example.
it is.
You know, you have your own paved driveway. You go to the hardware store and you get some material and you try to get it black again and preserve it. It's been oxidized. It's grayed out a little bit. So you're trying to add a little bit more life, a little bit more
The same concept.
the flexibility in. Your preventative maintenance treatments that are here in New England, basically conventional chip seals, asphalt rubber chip seals, there's microsurfacing, cape seals.
Yeah, the problem is it's a whole day class that we go through.
Right, there's all kinds of different treatments.
Everything here is used in New England currently. So these are, I think there's 14 different treatments, every single one of them somewhere in New England, and probably every one of those have been used in New Hampshire somewhere. So they're relevant to your area. What you pick and choose to use for your town varies upon your preference and your budgets. We can chat about that another day, but just trying to give you an idea what's out there.
And we'll show you what, on a table as to what, different price ranges are in these different types of treatments, just so you have an understanding of what the value of those different types of treatments are. As you can see in preventative maintenance, this is HMA is hot mix asphalt overlay, so that's one of those treatments that's definitely out there on the preventative side of things. And then you have all your other stuff on the other side here with dealing with minor rehabilitation and major rehabilitation. That's where your big capital dollars will really be spent in doing that. These are those different types of surface seals that are actually out there. If folks aren't familiar with them, once again, as Bruce mentioned, it's a full day class. We go over all these different types of treatments that are actually out there.
Yeah, all these ones you're looking at are pretty much based on newer pavements, keeping the air, sun, and the water out of them, preventing them from developing cracks in the first place. This is kind of what you're looking at here as options for that.
Yeah, keeping them sealed up and trying to keep your surface in good condition. Once again, this is your hot mix asphalt overlays and also mill and fills that end up happening there, where you actually mill off a course of the pavement there and actually replace it. In other words, rejuvenate it. I guess that would be a way to describe it. Rejuvenate it, put some new life back into it, and then put it back in place.
Reestablish your profile.
Yep.
Get everything where you need to go so that whenever you do pave over it, you don't have those reoccurring wheel tracks, because when you just shim over a road that's got wheel tracks, on your high spots you might be 1 inch, in your low spots you might be 4 or 5 inches, depending on how bad your wheel ruts are. So you can't roll effectively in one shot that 4 inch of depth, and those wheel tracks will reoccur very quickly in that kind of scenario.
It's the aspect of compaction. So
that's where you mill and fill. And then when you get down to the bottom of the curve, the $8 area we had talked about, this is the kind of things that you'd be looking at in this location. And obviously we started at the lower cost option. These are the higher cost options. We're trying to stay away from these at best you can with your annual budget. But with your, what'd you call it, your capital improvement money, you probably have to get into some of those type of things.
Yeah. Some communities, every community is different as to how they end up taking their money and how they put it. So we talk about those capital improvement plans. Some towns and other towns that I've been involved in will actually create a capital CIP plan for the roadway network, and they will allocate X amount of dollars annually that'll go into that fund. It may not necessarily be spent in that given year, but it may be built up enough so there's enough dollars in there to do a substantial project in doing that, and so they would build that up in order to do that. Generally those are the investments on the $8, $10 type of things are out of those types of funds versus funding the annual, what has been acceptable funding on an annual basis with some form of an inflationary impact that's added to it annually in order to try to stay with the market of the, what the CPI index may be impacted.
So these next couple of slides, go ahead, ask the question.
So is there a place, I think I heard that there's a place to kind of look up current values or current prices of different treatments, like generalized website that has estimates on how much?
Not
road
really,
work
because
things?
it varies from contractor to contractor in some ways, and region to region, and the volume of work done per town. But if you do have somebody come in that does a network evaluation of your roads, and they kind of give you a program, then they'll have a listing of usually it's a cost per square yard
Yeah.
or a cost per ton, and those, you can access all of that stuff from that point. Yep. So, any other questions? So these next couple of slides is what makes taxpayers, it catches your attention as the people that have to pay taxes. So here is the brand new road, and it starts to age a little bit, and then it starts happening really quick. And then towards the last few years of the service life of that pavement, it kind of gets bad, just sort of stays bad. It doesn't change all that much. Okay, so we all understand the red line. The next one, this is the cost of it. When the roads are brand new, the cost to work on them is very low. And as you wait down the timeline, the cost increase. So it's an inverse relationship. So we're just trying to show you that your money goes a lot further by operating in this area, low cost, early treatments, than waiting to do pave it and forget it. Your costs are going to be super high at the point when you wait to 20, 25 years before you decide to work on a road.
Yeah, and I wish the other slide was in there, because the other slide would kind of show that as you make those investments up here, that it actually hops it out and keeps it a little bit level, but
You don't
maybe
think it's
tapered
in here?
down.
Is that the next
I
slide
don't
after
think it
this?
is.
I don't know either.
But it basically helps extend that out, because you would look at this and say, well, geez, we might as well just go ahead and wait, because once we get here, we'll make that big investment, right? That's not what you want. You want to make those, so you extend, it's about extending that life cycle of the roadway itself, so that it doesn't get to that bottom of the curve.
So let me give you a local example, all right? You guys will all understand this because you live here. Ospey Lake Road, yes, everybody knows Ospey Lake Road. The Freedom, New Hampshire end of it, I meet with them February 2nd because they're trying to address that road. That road is going on 30 years now, and it's had one overlay in that time, and it's a lot like 41 right now, right? It's like this. They didn't do any pavement preservation on that road ever, and now they are basically, they paved it, they didn't do anything to it, now they're down here, and they're gonna be spending these dollars. If they had done something early in that life cycle, they wouldn't be in that situation. And we're talking about possibly somewhere around a $3 million bond to do that whole thing across there. It's 8 miles across there.
I think one road that we're looking at is East Madison Road,
Mm-hmm.
from Pound Road right down to King Pine, I think. Well,
Yeah.
actually, probably right around Durgan Pond.
From,
There's
does
a
that
section-
start from 113, 153 coming back to the King Pine ski area all the way
Yes,
across?
we're at 153 right up to 113.
Okay, yep.
So sections of it have been done, look great.
You did the section into Pound Road and then did Pound Road as well,
Yep,
and then that's where it stops.
yeah, and then kind of coming down from there and around Durgan
Mhm.
Pond. And I think it gets better again on the other side of Durgan Pond and going up, but that's a,
Yep, that's a pretty good stretch of road out through
Oh,
there.
we do
Yeah.
have it. It is there.
Yes.
hey.
And before we go to this, because this is a great slide, I want to commend whoever, I don't know who to commend, but I believe Pound Road and, is it East what, Madison?
East Madison Road.
You paved that 2 years ago, 2 seasons ago? And you're going to put a pavement preservation on that?
We would like to.
Like to.
We would like to do a chip seal on it.
Yep.
And then I think we're gonna try to do the top coat on Mooney and,
'Cause we kicked that can
Town
around.
Line. But we still, since Colby Hill's been washed out,
Yep.
we still haven't re-chip sealed that, and that's a couple years old now.
Well, what I guess what I'm getting at is that those pavements are really good, and you're thinking of them early in the life cycle, and you're gonna spend nothing small dollars anymore, but relatively small dollars on that piece of pavement. This is what this is about,
Yep.
all right? It's
I think
everything.
I have a bunch of pictures of those.
Like you say, it's hard to get the taxpayers to say, hey, you just did Colby Hill 2-3 years ago, what are you doing?
Exactly right. It
We
doesn't,
have other roads that are a lot worse.
it doesn't make sense to most people. I mean, if you're not looking and listening and seeing the things we're telling you and trying to explain to you why it does, you can understand why they feel that way. for sure, understood.
Well, I
So,
think as a town, this is, I think, new to kind of all of us in the past couple of years, right? For the most part, it has been worst first. And that's
Yeah,
kind of
that's-
how, yeah, that's how we've
Yeah.
operated, so that's, so you guys have had the training, we haven't. So
Right.
we're definitely, as the people driving the roads, that has been our mindset.
Yep.
Holy crap, why isn't it like this?
Exactly.
So learning this is good for us.
So there's two really bad ways to manage your asset. There's A, worst first, meaning pave it, forget about it, and then rebuild it. Very, very expensive to do that per square yard. And by the time you average out that cost over its lifespan, the cost is really high. B, if you decide to bond something, I just had a town do, I'm not gonna say who it is. They took out a $1.2 million bond. They don't have a lot of roads in town. They have probably 15 miles of pavement. They paved all their roads, $1.2 million. Now, every road in town is the same age classification, okay, which, whatever. They're not gonna do anything to maintain those roads. They're gonna service that debt on the bond for, I think, 10 or 15 years and do nothing to maintain. They're not gonna manage that asset that they put out there, $1.2 million. And I'm telling you, another 15 years, they're gonna be right back where they were, because they just did shims.
So it's gonna fall
Yeah,
apart
so what the-
faster and all at the same time.
Exactly right. Now, all, except it's a tidal wave of all your roads are exactly in the same PCI, and they're all gonna hit you at the same time.
yeah, and
Some must be like very lightly traveled where they'll last a little longer.
So,
Yeah.
good, you understand the
That's
variability.
irrelevant.
Yeah, but you understand the variability of
Yeah.
how well a road
Right.
lasts or doesn't last,
Like
depending
there's two
on
houses on it.
traffic,
Might
right?
last, yeah.
Very, very good, that's a great point. But in generalization, they're gonna be
You
in,
don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
they're gonna service that debt, spend no other money, and they're gonna be in trouble that we have to bond everything out all over again.
There was talk of a bond next year for one neighborhood. And I think it was a 1.5 million bond, which I have no idea honestly what road maintenance costs. It just seemed like, I don't know, it sounds like what you're talking about, like 1.5 million should go further than just the one neighborhood we're
Yeah,
talking
we
about.
all wish it went a long ways.
Because it's not, like, my understanding is it's not digging it up from scratch or anything.
I don't know, so I can't say, and I don't know what the quantities are, what was gonna be done. But $1 million just doesn't go very far in the paving world anymore. It's sad, but it's true.
yeah. So one of the factors is some communities tend to look at that, where they take that bond, and then they do just what Bruce was talking about, is that they are then gonna service the debt. So that bond is a payment, right? So over a 10-year life cycle, probably the payment on it is several $100,000 in order to pay that debt down, right? So they say, well, listen, that's what we've been paying for our road budget. We're just gonna take that money from our road, what would have been appropriated every year in the road budget, and we're gonna use it and apply it towards a payment on our road bond. And that's where they're gonna get into trouble, is because they're gonna be right back where they were. And as we all know, that 10 years from now, who knows what the costs are gonna be, but it's gonna be a lot more. So by keeping up with the curve and doing these types of things here and extending that life cycle out with more and more miles, you're actually getting a better bang for your buck. Once again, it's that invest $1 versus the $8 to $10. It really makes a big
And I
difference.
had real world numbers. This was some guy down in Minnesota somewhere, had been in the job for 50 years, and he did this on a road because he had that length of data, where he had some roads that were paved and they deteriorated over time, whatever that 25, 30 years was, and they did nothing, and then did some major rehab to get it back up to brand new again. They did it all over again. And then they had other roads where they were brand new, and as soon as they started showing deterioration, they did a little bit of a treatment here, like you're doing on Pound Road and East Madison Road, a conventional chip seal. That's your little bump. You're gonna get 7 or 8 years of service life, whatever it might be, and then you gotta maybe do a shim and a chip seal. And then it deteriorates a little bit more. Well, not a chip seal's not enough anymore, so you gotta shim and an overlay. Well, if you bounce that over time, it is much less expensive doing the green than it is doing the do nothing and then the major rehab. And I don't have the numbers with me, but I think it was like a third less.
I think we're in the situation where we have both need. We need to do, the
Major.
the major rehab,
Yeah.
and we have roads that, we're, this year is
Agreed.
planned for that.
Most towns do.
Most
Right,
towns-
but I feel like we as a town aren't quite planning for the major rehabs. Like, we've got this plan for this year, but I feel like we need to be honestly probably doing both at the same time, trying to figure out,
It's a juggling act.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to figure that out.
yeah.
Yeah, when I first started with building that road budget from going from what used to be the worst roads and dealing with just the worst road situation was then taken, when I first started, I did 50-50. I took 50% of the funds that were going to be for the roads and did 50% in preservation, and I did 50% in doing the reclamations and some of the bigger major type items. And then as I progressed, I was seeing, well, I'm getting more miles and I can cover more area. And then once I had that PCI number, I could see that I was doing a better job at trying to maintain that number or stay on the positive side of it in doing that. And so then we shifted that and moved it, instead of being 50%, and we moved towards the 70 or 80%, and was then only investing 20% of that towards the major stuff. But understand that as that happened, I also looked at increasing the overall budget amount to allocate towards that road budget in order to try to have that type of a funding mechanism to do that.
Were you there long enough to see the PCI rise over that amount of time, what you were doing?
Yes.
I didn't know if you did like
Yeah.
a survey when you were started versus before you
Yeah,
left.
so like even in Alton, in that situation there, when we started out and got our PCI number there, we were in the 60, I think our roadway network was right around 67, 68 was our score of our PCI number.
How many miles of roadway in all?
Let's see, we had,
Maintain that score.
right, so we ended up having, on the paved side of things, we were just about, I think it was 54 miles of paved, and then we had 24, I get confused now, I think it's 24 miles of gravel in
But
that.
you'd have
Now,
to-
that doesn't play into your PCI number at all, other than when you use this type of a mechanism to gain your roadway network itself, that I was just dealing with on the pavement side of things.
But Alton was completely a worst first situation. That's all
Completely.
they had done for
Yep, they just did
15 years.
major,
And they never got above that. It was always,
it was always, and it
Million
was
dollars.
always going down. Overall network value, I believe, if we were able to get scores from way back, we would see that it had been progressively going overall, because it's a collective network. So it was actually going down.
at $1 million of funding a year.
Right, so, when they first started, that's what they were spending about, when I got there, about $900,000 a year. And they were investing it all in one road to be taken care
it
of.
was always being spent on the worst first.
And losing ground, PCI diving, yep.
Yeah. We looked to make that growth and end up happening because I forecasted that they really needed to be very similar. Alton and Moultonborough were very similar as far as their road miles and their network itself between pavement and gravel, and basically needed to actually, the goal was to get it increased incrementally yearly to get up to about $1.7, $1.8 million annually to be invested in the network, so that you could then maintain and get growth on your PCI number. I think when I left in Moultonborough, our score, we were up into the 70s at that point, high 70s, looking towards the 80s. And the goal was of the CIP committee, budget committee, select board, was to try to have, B plus, B minus type of roads if they could. And they could. They had, high, they had, the high tax value there. I say high tax value. They had a high assessment value of all that lakefront property, so money was a lot easier there than it probably is here in Madison. Although you have a lot of lakefront property as well, but still, money doesn't come easy all the time, and everybody's looking for a chunk of it. So.
I certainly think like the Moultonborough, Meredith, Guilford, Alton are a little bit of an anomaly for
Right.
small town life in New Hampshire for sure, as far as funding goes. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. All right,
So we
we've
kinda talked
talked
this.
about the worst
Trying to
first.
keep these guys-
This gives you a little bit here on some of the estimated treatments that are actually out there. We talk about investment into different treatment ranges that end up happening.
Ranges
so-
is a good word to use.
Yeah,
right?
and these are based on square yards, calculations here of different types of treatments. And you can see what those investments are as to how they increase. When you start talking about things that we're talking about with the crack seals and the fog seals, and they're at 50 cents to $2, for an example, per square yard, versus down here with full depth reclamation at $18 to $30. That's how you get that ratio of that dollar versus $8 to $10 in looking at that. So that's how you see your investment, and you can get more miles done.
This is just, if you have a chance, this is kind of based on that mile years theory that we had talked about. But if you had a chance to look that up, and it's not an exciting read, but it's pretty important, and it's very clever.
Yeah, yeah, it really does talk about that life extension.
So let's talk about something else so you understand this. So whatever the treatment might be, let's just pick single seal, okay? I'm just going to choose chip seal because you use chip seal and you're familiar with it. If you take a road like Pound Road, which is in really good condition, right, it has a high PCI, that's the service life you're going to get out of a conventional chip seal, right? We know the cost per square yard is whatever it is, $3.50 a square yard. But what if you take a road like East Madison Road, which is in really tough shape, it's starting to be pretty bad, and I wouldn't recommend using a chip seal on that, but if you did, and the PCI is PCI of 60 or lower, I would say you're somewhere between 1 to 3 years of service life. So it just goes to show you that a chip seal costs what a chip seal costs per mile. But if you use that chip seal on good pavement, look how much better of a bang per buck on a yearly basis you get because of the service life that you're going to get out of it, okay? And another thing
double your life on your money, you know?
Yeah, and the other thing is that at some point in time you can't chip seal Pound Road. It's going to deteriorate to the point where chip seals is not going to be a viable option. But it's going to take longer for Pound Road to get to that condition, A, and B, when it does come time to pave it, the deterioration won't be as bad as it would have been if you did nothing to it. So you get two bangs for your buck on that kind of situation.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, these give those so-called life cycle ranges based upon the condition of the current pavement. We always recommend to folks that, you know, like Bruce just said, you know, you're not going to put a chip seal on a road that, you know, really is in that poor condition, even in some of the fair conditions. Generally, the folks that go out and ride them and look at them with you will say, don't spend your money, you know, because you're going to waste it because it's going to be a shorter life cycle extension that you're going to have. Use it on the other roads that are in better shape to get that longer cycle.
The only caveat to this slide is that you could take a road, I'm just going to use East Madison Road again, and instead of grind, grade, and compact and rebuilding that road and starting from scratch, a possible option could be, what if you shim the entire road with a 1/2 3/4 inch leveling course and then put a chip seal over the top of it? So you bring it from a poor condition into a between fair and good condition and preserve it that way. So there's different options that you can bring a road from one condition and get it into a category so you can use a lesser cost preservation treatment, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Yeah.
You just got to weigh the life extensions over the other options. You just got to play around with that number.
Yeah, and once again, it's just like you had said that, you know, the highway guys have been trained in this and they know about it, and they come in and they present to select boards and budget committees about it, and they're all going like, what are you talking about? We don't understand this. We only know that when people call us up and are complaining about their road, right, want something done about it in that situation there. But having this ability to be educated on it, I found that in every community that I served in those years, is that you have to do these types of presentations to select boards and budget committees and the community at large. Now we have the technology in order to be able to help and be able to get that information out there. It's really, really important. I really find that most of the stuff that we need to do now is being able to educate the public about these types of activities and things that have changed, and the knowledge in which folks have now about pavement itself. And road maintenance.
Money's so tight, the days of just saying, here's $150,000, we don't care what you do with it, are gone, because the taxes have increased, the cost of everything have increased, and you need to take that $150,000, $250,000, whatever the number it is, and get as much squeeze out of it as you can. You know, get as much bang for your buck out of that money,
Right.
because it's just not a lot of room for error when you have 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 miles of road that are all aging, another year, another year, another year. And it only takes, And I see this a lot in towns that have turnover in the public works directors. They're there 2 or 3 years and gone, 2 or 3 years and gone. Those are the towns that really suffer because that new person's just getting their feet underneath them and they're getting a program going and then they're gone. And they might not have all that collection of information from the SAGE program and for the next guy to look at and say, oh, this road they did this in 2014 and this road they did this in 2021. So he knows where the starting points are and can be, up and running right from the get-go.
Right, yeah.
So
So,
we're just going to play around with a couple of numbers. We're going to give you, the spreadsheet is going to be in the thumb drive that anything highlighted in yellow, you can change all the numbers, okay? So now we talked about, we're at 20, we're going with 29 miles of pavement a year. So if you did worst first and you reclaimed and repaved 0.65 miles, you get a life extension of somewhere around 15 years. That number could vary depending upon, that's what $250,000 is gonna get you, 0.65 miles. And you're only gonna, you're not getting the life extension that you need. And you're only getting 10 years of life, a third of what you should get for life extension. This number right here, mile year, should equal the miles of road you have, 30 miles, and you're only getting 10. So what if we did an 1.5-inch overlay on 0.85 miles, and we did a single seal of 2 miles? Well, we're still spending the $250,000, but we're only still at 19 miles of service life added to the bucket, right? You're still losing almost 10 miles of service life a year because the rest of your roads are aging quicker than the money you're putting into the ones that you did this year using these treatments. Does that make sense? That's a tough one to kind of chew on. We show you should be the next.
sorry.
So when we go to the next one, we go to rehab and repair. So let's say that we reclaim 1.15 miles. You get 17 years back. Or if you did a preservation strategy and you didn't do any reclaim and you put all your reclaiming and your mill and fills into I keep coming up that word.
Well, either
Asset,
a bond or you end up putting
bond.
it into a CIP plan.
Capital plan, that's what I'm keep forgetting. And you just did some 1.5-inch overlay. You did a bunch of single seals on your good road, and you did a bunch of crack sealing on your good roads. In that scenario, for some reason or another, the $350,000.
Maybe did I skip one? Sorry, I
there it
skipped
is.
one.
So once again, we'll start, this was the middle, $350,000. Reclaim, 9/10 of a mile, 14 years of service life because you didn't quite do a mile. That's all you're getting out of your money for $350,000. It's still $350,000 doing worse first is not enough money. You're going backwards, you're losing ground. But when you do a little bit of rehab, so you don't do any reclaim, you do shimming, single seals, and crack seals, $350,000 is getting you 33 years of service life. So there you're
So
gaining
you're,
ground.
At least you're maintaining and not going on the decrease, but once again, it's pretty tight there.
If you get this home and you play around, and you probably can be access to all of you guys to take it and put it on a computer, play around with, you can change, there's a way to change any of the different choices for services that are here. They don't have to be these exactly. You can change how much you're gonna do and keep trying to get this number to match the miles you have and then figure out what the funding is that you wanna put towards it.
I think that one's a pretty good example, because I think they said we had 33. But to extrapolate that, I could potentially hear somebody say, well, yeah, but we're not doing any reclaiming while we get to the, but the idea is to get to, can you go to the next slide?
The 450 or the?
Yeah.
Yep.
So, see, at the 450, you're at 42. If you were a town of 33 miles,
Yep.
you run a few years in 42, and then you can start doing some reclaiming. Is that kind
Yeah,
of the idea?
you did. You were gaining ground, and then maybe you do a few years in this direction with a lot of preservation, no reclaiming, no mill and fills,
But eventually you will need to do some reclaim.
and then jump on doing a couple years, like you said, of doing some of the higher
I
cost
think
stuff.
that's where people will probably have a hard time, general populace wrapping their head around the strategy.
Yeah.
They go, so you're saying I have to drive on junk for a while, and it's like, well,
Yep.
So that's the reason why a lot of the road programs end up, eventually when there's enough dollars, they end up doing a blended, that percentage blending, where they end up taking 60, 70% and put it into preservation, and then they end up doing a reclaim or a spot reclaims of certain areas. So in other words, if it's really bad in a certain area and you can tell that the dexterity underneath the road and the support underneath the road needs a little bit more support, so you may say, well, for half a mile here, we're gonna just reclaim that part of it because that's really the bad section. We're gonna introduce stone into it and get some more stiffness into it, or use some other kind of a product to help stiffen the road up itself so it doesn't keep having the sags and, the bellies and the heavy frost heaves or whatever it may be. So, there's different strategies to do that, but that would be more towards that reconstruction side and taking a piece of it so you can show to the public, yeah, we are trying to address some of that. Or we'll end up putting that investment of those dollars into a capital reserve fund for that CIP plan for more of a larger project potentially. Or you just tap it every year. In other words, you just know that you're gonna fund it X amount of dollars every year, and a percentage of that would then be used for those type of projects potentially.
I mean, we could spend 2 hours talking about just
Strategies.
reconstruction and how to go about
Yeah.
that alone.
Yeah.
But another thing to notice is if you're working in the, reconstruction arena, that as a taxpayer and you got 30 miles of road, 29 miles of road, and only 1.15 miles of it's being touched, your presence in town's not very well known versus doing a bunch of 8.5 miles of different treatments. You spread that money out across the town so it's seen that people feel like, hey, my taxpayer dollars are going to
Right.
work somewhere here. They're being utilized.
That's a big, what I found, my experience has been is people like seeing, these types of things happening because it touches on many different places in the community. Now granted, generally a lot of strategy is to capitalize on mobilization and trying to take a certain area, a certain neighborhood and kind of concentrate on that. But, once again, there's different strategies. Like Bruce said, we could talk about all kinds of different things. But for an example, when you start talking about East Madison Road and Pound Road, where those, are looked at for that chip seal, it makes sense to do that together, for an example, versus saying, well, listen, there's not that many houses on Pound Road,
I've had interactions with people all around the town, I hear the same thing, no matter what neighborhood you're in.
Right.
When are they coming to my neighborhood? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, they got 4 other neighborhoods that are worse.
Right.
So you don't, like you say, you don't wanna see that. You wanna be able to go into all the neighborhoods that need something and try to address it, with the money we have the best we can.
And this is, so many of this is pieces coming together, right? It's hopefully getting like that road CIP updated so that I think last year there was a little bit of red, yellow, green, kind of readjusting that and then estimating how much it's gonna cost and making sure that, so we have the plan for the preservation this year. But I feel like we might need to, I don't know if we do ETF, whatever, financially, yeah, in addition to the 420 that we're planning on spending on preservation, we should probably start adding 100,000 or even more to something to fix, like East Madison Road. But the thing is, we need to plan it, right? We need to have that road CIP, and then we need to make sure that we're setting money aside. Like, it's all these pieces coming together. So we rely on you guys' expertise to tell us.
And that's why we're glad you're here to understand.
Yep.
When we present something to you, that it's just not foreign. Now it'll make sense that, hey, they have a purpose, they have a plan. We understand that there is more than just the worst that they want to address, and there's a reason for it.
Yep, so my concern when it was presented to us, and it was just the preservation piece, and I think Nicole and I were pushing and going, okay, but what is our plan for the rest of it? And we weren't given a plan.
Well,
So that's kind of,
we were trying to put this all together
Yeah.
so that we could create something that was more in depth.
yeah,
And this is one of the things we decided to try to do to help, facilitate our end of it and have you folks understand where we're coming from, so.
yep, absolutely. I think this literally brought us together.
Right.
So
Right, and it got us.
another thing to chew on is that You can't operate in the preservation model unless the roads are in good enough condition to operate in that model, right? And the PCI has dropped over time, clearly in town, right? The roads have gotten worse and worse. Your network has gotten worse. It didn't happen overnight. It's happened over many years. And you're not going to get it all back in 2 or 3 years. It's going to take many years to build things back up where you want it. So don't race out of the gate and rip and tear into everything. Understand as taxpayers and committees that it's going to take a while to get this all to come back. But you can get there. You just got to chisel away at it. But it takes time.
That road CIP has just resurfaced again. And the overall town CIP, we just voted at town meeting last year to create a capital improvement committee. So we're getting there again to start
Yeah.
the planning and to be more on top of these
Sounds
things.
like you're headed in the right direction.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're trying.
This just gave a little bit of a summary, right, Bruce?
Yeah, just a summary of what we talked about.
Going from 10 years to 42 years,
With such an amount of time, it's so hard to really dive
Right.
into all this stuff. But
types of things.
this
This
is,
just showed an
Arlington,
example.
which probably has apples and oranges in every sense of the word, but Arlington, Massachusetts, they did no preservation whatsoever. They had a PCI of 81. Their PCI was dropping, and then they started doing some preservation treatments in year 11 through 14. And then they started to see some improvements with their PCI, and they started investing more and more, doing more miles of preservation, less miles of rehab, and they could see their PCI start increasing more. And by the year 2019 and 2020, how many miles of preservation they were doing, how many miles of rehab they were doing, you can see the pendulum was completely swung the other direction. And the whole time they were monitoring their PCI, and they saw their PCI increase dramatically where they had been losing it over time.
They kept the same budget from 05 to 20?
I don't know the exact budgeting things about that, but that would be a Bobby, because usually he is.
Level funded, I was just trying.
Yeah, it
It
says
is very possible, because that's quite common theme right now.
But they should share that with the state of Massachusetts for funding.
Right.
Yeah.
So takeaways is really understanding your asset as to what you have and having that inventory and being able to get some baseline in there. That will certainly help out in being able to explain this to people and have them understand the data and how the numbers go and why, by making these investments as to how that's going to affect those numbers themselves.
And I think you guys said this to us, that, the increased funding and a blended strategy, right? You mentioned that. I think you certainly see the benefit of what direction that can take you in. And wasn't us telling you, you were telling us, so that's great.
Yeah, and there's numerous, there's several different treatments, as you saw in that big list, for stuff that's available in New England out there to be able to do that. I threw in some pictures from Google Earth, just in case some people had some questions about, why are you going to do anything to that road itself on East Madison Road?
That must be
This would
there must be Pound Road
That's
right
Pound
there.
Road.
Exactly,
Yeah, I knew that Pound Road was the other one, but as far as being able to,
Keep traveling down that road, even just.
yeah,
Just
A
over
little
that,
bit,
just over that hill.
and and Pound Road's there.
This, I believe, was in August of last year.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure when the Google Earth ones are.
It just went through, I think it was
August
August.
2025, yeah, that's when Google
Yeah.
Earth updated.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
I don't think there were any images on there before, I think it was its first throw in East Madison.
Yeah, I agree with
yeah.
you.
So I mean, and I believe, once again, there wasn't any good surface stuff. But this is kind of a neighborhood type of side of things. My recollection is.
If I'm right, didn't we do a double or triple chip seal? Were those all gravel roads at one time?
They were at one time, and then you did, years ago, you did a sand seal on them
Okay.
over the gravel.
was a while ago.
Or whatever, I'd say penetration.
Penetration seal.
Yeah.
That probably was with your dad. With
Yeah,
that.
it
Yeah, I was
was,
just
that
gonna
was a
say.
long time ago, we haven't done anything to that, and then there was a section that we peeled up all the pavement that was, what was left. It
Dave
was-
Cribby live out on one of these here?
Yeah. Yep, he does.
Okay.
house right there.
Yeah, yeah.
And then,
If Dave is watching from home,
Oh,
he's
and
watching
then-
your
Oh,
house.
and then some of it was the section that there was nothing that we had to redo.
Yeah.
that was a triple layer, and the rest of it was just a single. And
Okay.
that's held up really well.
Right, that was a few years ago now.
If it was your dad, it would have been like almost 10 years ago.
That was,
It was one of John's first years.
yeah, it was John's first year, yeah, so
It was
that
that
was,
and Winter
It
Road.
was like 2017-ish,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
9 years.
We did,
Man, time flies
Horse
by.
Lake Hill.
yeah, we did Winter Road, Horse Lake Hill,
Yeah,
Forest Pines, the spur off of Forest
and
Pines.
you lost part of the bottom half of Colby Hill with the
We
flood.
lost most of
pretty
Colby
much
Hill,
all of
yeah.
it.
Yeah, with a flood, right?
Yep, that was all down in the middle of 113.
Yeah.
I wish I had pictures of that, I'd like to see that.
Somebody does.
You should have walked
The
it.
videos were even more impressive.
Really?
They did
As it
drone
was
footage of
happening.
it. I think they borrowed Conway and they did a drone.
So in High Street, for an example, so High Street, I think it said on the plan that I was sent, was it had been maybe proposed by to the select board, and everybody was, you know, looking at some crack sealing to be done. So, you know, this has got some of that crack sealing, cracks on the side here to be treated in those areas, so.
High Street.
It's across from 41. Kind of like when you
So,
come,
Take a left out of 40.
Take a left out of 41, this next
First
right.
house on the, first road on the right.
Oh,
of 41, when you're coming northbound and you reach the very end of it where it intersects with 113,
Yeah.
you take a left.
Left
right.
and a right,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I know where you're at now, by your dad.
You might not see the street sign because it gets taken in a
The
very.
sign's always
Yeah, the
showing.
signs never stay there.
April 20th.
Even the
right?
granite one.
Every year when it goes.
420 is,
Yep, that's when High Street goes.
okay, that's funny.
So I did throw in Deer Road, I think it was. I think that was part of the project that was talked about with some of the major work to be done, maybe under a bond at some point.
That wasn't
But
tough.
let's reclaim it.
Yeah, I was
You
gonna
can
point
really
that out.
see those, yeah, traverse,
So you guys realize those are cracks,
yeah.
right? What kind of cracks are those?
Those big ones.
Yeah, but what causes those? What causes those cracks? We talked about it.
Water.
Thermal, right? The pavement stretches when it gets hot, contracts, and it's in very uniform distances, right? And then it's in blocks. So that pavement's probably the same thickness everywhere, just like you see on the highway. You'll see this a lot where the pavements, well, they're 10 inches, but this is probably 4 or 5 inches. So because the pavement's all the same thickness, it heats and cools at the same rate, so it will pop and break in very uniform spots. Thermal cracking.
Yep.
Not that you care, but just. So
Yeah.
wow, it's really hard to, you can't do that in an hour, I don't think.
No,
No,
That's an all-day class, the whole day.
it is an all-day class, and it's, you know, we always have a full house. We do it twice a year.
Have the conversation and for everybody to be able to kind of say, this is what we're doing, or, you know what I mean? We appreciate that
We
we're able
want.
to do
And this is
that.
what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what technical assistance is all about. Is coming out, you know, to communities and trying to help them out and be able to share the information with them so that hopefully they can make good informed decisions in planning. And, you know, we wish you the best. And we're here, like I say, I'm gonna give you the thumb drive there, pass it off to whoever. And like I say, it has calculators on there as well.
Mm.
So there's two Excel spreadsheet calculators on there that you can actually plug in numbers and do different strategies and that kind of stuff on.
So
And
the
then,
classes that you hold twice a year, they're not strictly for DPW, maintenance crews, you can, everyone's invited, selectmen and budget committee, you know,
yeah,
anyone that
we
wants to go.
actually have
and-
had select board, budget committee, CIP committee members that come.
Administrators.
Town administrators, we try to get town administrators to go. It's tough sometimes for them to get away, but, and I always call out when somebody is from a select board that comes, to be honest with you, or somebody else that comes from another volunteer so-called committee that comes because they've taken time out of their day to learn and about this type of stuff that's not regular stuff and not always in their wheelhouse, you know, for what people do. It's in their wheelhouse. They do it every day and they work with it, they live it, they breathe it, they see it, type of thing. You folks may not have that same, although you said you were in the asphalt business, so you understand it a little bit better maybe than somebody who doesn't, certainly, and it makes a
We
huge
tailored
difference.
them. We had 2 different classes. We had for PWD, Public Works Directors and people and
Yep.
that such. And then we had one for administrators and elected officials and committees.
Yep.
Because we invariably would go do the one for directors, and they would all say, this is great, we love it, we agree with you, but we need the funding to implement it, so we need the administrators and the elected officials to see this. So we were like, well, let's do a separate class for them, not dive so heavily into the treatments, more into the funding and the
Funding, the
theory part of
budgeting,
it.
using the spreadsheets, doing some calculations,
But it's
that
so-
kind of stuff.
It got so we were doing 4 classes a year, and it's very difficult for me to
Yeah.
get away and do 4 classes
Yeah.
a year.
Yeah.
But
So-
So since you do these kind of classes, so what I'm hearing is most of this stuff is just subbed out. Like this has not a lot to do with the people on staff here, so.
The planning does.
The planning does, yeah, like I mean, just saying the actual physical.
The actual
like,
treatments are
dirty work,
usually
yeah,
done by
yeah, so
some
this is
form of a
something-
contractor.
So what if like, say, because we keep throwing East Madison Road under the bus, and, you know, I think it was done 15 years ago.
it's been shimmed. I had an overlay
It's
at
done,
some point.
it's got an overlay, I think it was it just top coated last time, or shimmed and overlaid?
It was
'Cause it's-
shimmed and overlaid, shimmed in places.
Places, and it's
Places.
different, there's 2 different PCIs on that road, and I can't remember when or where, what.
Mm.
Yeah, well, I
It'd
can
be
pick
special
up
if
the
they're
different
three.
layers in my
Might be.
hand, so.
I think there's 3 for like the first section that's now been redone.
Yeah,
Another one from that up to around Durgan Common, and then another kind
Yeah.
of where the road is in.
Yeah, so,
decent shape on the
so
other side.
I live right in the worst part of it, so,
Okay.
and I didn't really love that when the first time we did it, because then it became, I had little kids then, and it became a highway. Lion.
Flying.
And,
That's the bad part about paving.
yeah,
roads.
but now, it's so loud when the trucks go by, because
Banging.
the banging is extreme. So it will be probably a little bit before we can save enough money to, at least, when that road would probably have to come down, because you can tell there's obviously, they didn't use the right amount of stone and right size gravel underneath, because it just fell, it's 15 years and there's nothing.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it's not prudent to crack fill it, the cracks are this big.
no,
But
no.
the sides, like in front of my neighbor's house, I could step off probably this far. So, and it
Sure.
has been like that for years.
Yeah.
So, and it's just getting worse the more it rains, so I'm wondering, so is that still a good investment of our time and money to get those shoulders
So I,
like built up so that we can save it a little bit for, till we get to that, like?
here's my recommendations for that particular
Pretty
road.
deep.
A, establish ditch lines, have good ditch lines. I don't know if there isn't or isn't, I'm just saying.
Yeah,
That
there's
just,
some parts that go up high like this.
so do the best you can with
Yeah.
ditches. If the culvert and pipes need to be replaced, it'd be a great time to go ahead and saw cut them, put them in, and then
Yeah, 'cause
patch
you can't
them.
make it worse, right?
And then let them settle. That way they'll have a whatever amount of time, maybe 2 or 3, 4 years to settle. So that's a good thing to do, so that you don't have those issues when you do a brand new pavement. So any kind of drainage, if you need to saw cut some areas out, dig down, put stone in, and wrap some ditch line, you know, to carry the water somewhere else. So address all your water issues now, because those are not terribly expensive things you can do, and will help that road from deteriorating quicker.
Because I call it, it's being overmined and undermined. So the water's running under it because it's so deep on the sides, and the cracks are so wide, it's being overmined by water and undermined by water.
Water is probably the
It's
most
kind of-
detrimental thing to
That's
any
Yeah.
road.
that's a fact.
There's no doubt about it.
No, that's my job. The first thing I do when I go on a job site is
Yeah.
look, where am I putting water?
Where you,
First
right.
thing I do, and I take pictures of
Nobody
where I
wants
want
a
the water
puddle,
to
right?
go. Yeah, and how much gravel I have to put in and how it has to be
Alright.
graded.
So you were saying ditches, then kind of culverts and letting them settle,
Yep.
drainage.
Yep, because sometimes, like,
Something.
you'll go around a corner to the, on the right-hand corner, on the inside corner, everybody tends to drive almost off the road,
Yeah.
and you'll see a lot of alligator cracking in those areas. And oftentimes, if you have an inside corner with an uphill sloping down to that
Yeah,
curve,
and that's,
you got a water trapped right there, right? So if there's any way that you can saw cut that out, go down, move, excavate the crud that's probably there, put some good materials, drainage, you probably have dealt with some of that stuff. Anything that's gonna help with the water, however you wanna deal with it.
Cause
But
my
do those
my
things.
neighbor across the street in this bad area too, they just did tree work, but they left those up right on the edge that are completely dead, thinking, I did speak to him originally, like, how come you didn't get rid of those trees? He's like, well, I figured the town's gonna come along and fix the side of the road and they'll take them away, because they're really dead, and I was like, oh, okay, hopefully, maybe I should ask.
Yeah.
And, it is a little bit of a bowl where I live, you know, where we have to make some sort of, maybe stone line instead of gravel, so that we just
Yeah.
get moving faster
Some
away.
places are very
Yeah,
difficult.
sometimes you
Yeah.
end up having, you know, embankments, that, you know,
Yeah.
come right down to the, like
You
that.
have to stone
Right.
walls.
You know,
Right.
so you
Yeah,
have
stone
that.
Right.
walls.
So the only way to get the water out of there is to
Yeah.
put in what they call under drain, for an example, if you end up taking drainage, perforated drainage, basically to
Yeah.
come down through there, so it collects any of the water that water pressure that is coming in and trying to migrate into the roadbed itself. So you try to capture that and then try to get it to go out to daylight and try to get it to go away from the roadway. So there's different treatments there. If you got an area that's really like humped up and all out of shape,
Crazy.
type of area there, that may be an area that may be a candidate either for some, add more stone to stabilize it. It may be that it's on some type of glacial till, or maybe on a wet area there that might have been an old swamp that got filled in.
It's the
And so
side
you
of
might
town
have to
that
put some
tends
fabric
not to be the
down.
sand, it's more the clay too. So whoever did their initial layer may not have used enough stuff, for it's maybe, you know, just unsuitable material.
Or maybe they waited too long to do proper maintenance on the road.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Or
years
wait,
ago,
I don't know
that's what
what
they
it was
did though,
before,
that's what they
15
did, they
years
did the
ago.
worst road, so when they did the worst road,
Yeah.
it was
They-
do it and forget
Remember when
it.
they
you know?
first did it.
So now you gotta ask yourselves a
But
question.
it's our longest road and most expensive road, and
Well-
most heavily traveled.
Gets a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
So here's the next question for you. Do all the things that we just talked about, right?
Yeah.
Water management, pipe management, and I would probably upsize your pipes because now we don't get a little rainstorm, we get belly washes, right? We all see that. Are you gonna try to salvage that road and maintain that pavement, or are you gonna let it deteriorate to the point where you're gonna be rebuilding it and locate your dollars somewhere else in town? You know, that road's at the tipping point. Which direction you gonna go? Is it
It's
just
not all of it.
just forget about it, and we know we're gonna maybe have to rebuild that tire road because it's your most heavily traveled road, you probably want it to be your best road in town, I guess. What about truck traffic?
Yeah, that's the thing, a lot of trucks
Is
that
it
aren't supposed to be
posted?
on it, it is posted in the spring, and it is posted 12 ton.
So it's posted in the
All,
spring.
all year round though.
Supposed to be
It's-
around 20 tons.
Good job.
Is it 20 or 10, 12?
20,
Is that, hopefully all your roads get posted in the spring?
Oh, yeah.
Great job. I mean, the town I live in, they don't post the roads. You can watch, I live on a gravel pit road, and you can watch the road detonate every spring.
Jeez.
It's crazy. It's how bad it is. In the spring is when you ruin your roads, to be real honest with you. So, you know, you gotta figure out where you're headed with your funding and what you wanna do with some of these roads, and that road's gonna go one way or the other. You
Yeah.
gotta do something quick.
I'm just trying to think, support the sides, get the water away from it, get it ready for
You
people.
should do that no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Before you do anything else to that road, deal with your water issues.
Yeah.
So the surface treatments and stuff like that, it is things that get contracted out. You know, you hire a paving company to come in and do it, you hire a company to come in and do chip seals, crack sealing, you know, there's people that do crack sealing as well. And or you rent equipment to do it, it is labor intensive, so when you have a small workforce, it's tough to do that crack sealing on your own, in that situation there. But a lot of maintenance stuff that can be done, such as, you know, ditch maintenance, culvert replacement, lots of times between combined workforces of town workforces and maybe a contractor, sometimes those things are done together, or maybe the crew is able to handle that kind of stuff, so they can do a lot of that stuff in-house, which does keep your levels down. The idea is you don't wanna take take your highway department and make them a construction team that's all they're doing, is that, because there's other maintenance things that have to be done, cutting trees that are falling down and clearing the brush and roadside mowing, and there's a lot of different things, grading the roads and doing the dust control. There's a lot of things that they're doing. Everybody thinks that, you know, hey, listen, we're paying all these guys, you know, they can do all that work.
Yeah.
Sometimes they can't, but sometimes a combined workforce sometimes can work as well in order to make that stuff happen. But chipping away at that stuff in preparation, you know, I've taken, you know, a lot of towns end up inheriting a lot of roads, And what I mean by inheriting is that there's subdivisions that are built, for an example, and a town meeting, back in the day, it used to, all it did is 25 signatures on a warrant and to accept the road, and you get enough people there at the meeting and everybody says aye.
We did it last year.
And the town is now, as I say, inherits a road. And with the inheriting of that road, you get everything that came with it, whether it was built correctly, not built correctly, whether there's checks and balances down, whether there's drainage, those types of things. And I've had to go in and tackle those, where the stump is coming up through the road, the rock's coming up through the road. And I'm sure these guys do it, quite frequently, and Bruce talked about cutting out certain sections. Those types of repairs can help you when it comes time to do the big nugget as well, and doing that stuff, but it all takes time.
I had another thought also, is that when you have a road management surface program come in, and then it's maintained on a yearly basis so that they know what you did on what road, what treatment, and going forward, there's a running record of that. Me as a contractor that comes in and looks at East Masson Road, for me to make a recommendation what should be done with that road, I'd love to know what the history of that road is. How old is that pavement? How thick is the pavement total? Because maybe those records aren't here, but when you put culvert pipes in there and you cut that, maybe make a record somewhere of how thick the pavement is.
Take a picture.
That would be really helpful to make
That varies
recommendations.
down through there.
Because maybe a mill and fill would be a great treatment, but if there's only 3 inches of pavement, mill and fill's out the window, right? But I don't know that until I know
Well,
what's
it's
underneath.
definitely over there into,
But if you
probably
get-
closer to 6.
Yeah, there's places, there was, just down below Go Hill, we changed the pipe down there and it was like
Okay.
8 to 10 inches thick.
But documentation would be really helpful for everybody.
Yeah, if you don't have a set already, create a road file, so that every road has a folder, or, a hanging file.
Yeah.
Yeah, just be, when you go out and
That's
do
a
a
good
pipe,
idea.
and that kind of stuff, you guys probably have them already. Take a picture, take a ruler and do that kind of stuff.
Be awesome.
And it's helpful when you take that picture, is you can see, okay, that was hot mix up there, hot mix, ooh, that was,
Cold mix.
that was
Cold
farmer's
mix,
mix, or cold
Farmer's
mix type of
mix.
stuff, and,
There you go.
yeah, so that goes a long way in being able to be
One of
able
the
to
pictures shows you,
forecast.
you got hot mix, cold mix, and then boulders and crud
Yeah.
and junk underneath it. Now, oh,
That
now
was-
I-
I've
that
had
was
corduroy
cool.
roads.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was, that started with the cold mix.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
There's a lot of roads that's how, state
that
roads.
was pretty
even.
cool.
yeah, I paved that road
Yep.
30 years ago. I remember the acorns were
It's
falling on
still
my
got
head.
your footprints on it too.
No, that was quite something up there. That was,
In October, it was October of whatever year, it had to be 30 years ago, because the exhaust from the paver was knocking the acorns off the trees and they were like bouncing on our heads.
What road was that?
Colby Hill.
yeah. That was a long time ago.
So we threw a lot of stuff at you guys and we realize that, but we're both here, our numbers are there.
Thank you.
We'll give you any honest advice that you're looking for. If you need help, just reach out to one of us, we'll do whatever we can for you.
Yeah. Glad to,
Thank you very, very
glad to
much.
help in any way, or,
Like Pound Road, we did the overlay on that.
Yeah.
We did the base one year.
Is it 2 inches of base and 1 inch of top?
I think it's, 2.5, 2.5 and
So
1.
4, great,
And,
big difference.
but the following year, the top coat should set a year before you do the full chip seal on it.
Well, as a rule, and just history, because I've been doing this for so long, is that most towns didn't do anything to their new pavements. They'd wait till they saw issues before they reacted, right? So they were reactive instead of proactive. A lot of the western states, Colorado, Montana, some of the cold weather states out there, put it right in the contract, say you pave and put a chip seal same year. If you don't have the weather for it, the next spring you put a weather barrier chip seal on that road same year or following year. So the earlier that you can get onto the pavement and seal in those light oils before they evaporate out, that you'll maintain that flexibility a lot longer and the service life of your pavements will be extended sooner the better.
keeping that pliability.
It still comes to money, you gotta have the money to do that, I understand, but if you ask me just from strictly what's the best practice, that would be the best way to go. But I like that you did 2.5 and 1.5, because that 4 inches of pavement structure is exponentially stronger than just 3 inches. It's not just 25%.
For roads, does it matter how close together the top and the wear course and the base course go on?
Meaning, like if you
Like,
did a
should
base
do it right
one,
away, or you have to do it a year later, or
In
what's
a
the optimal?
in a perfect world,
Yeah,
if you grind, grade, compact,
yeah,
if you could let that road go over a winter and not pave it, would be ideal, because you get settling, you guys see it.
and that's what I recommend for driveway.
Stinks to
but,
pave,
you know.
I mean, stinks to plow, because it's got one more gravel road you gotta maintain.
But it's
In a
lot
perfect
more
world,
grass.
that's what I say. But grind, grade, compact, put 2.5 inches of base, even a single course base, so it's not so porous,
Yeah.
and let that go through a freeze thaw cycle. And then that way, when you do the 1.5 inch overlay, any imperfections, you can pick them up with that overlay. So if there's a couple of dips or a couple of wheel ruts, you can catch them with that overlay. Whereas do it in the same year, you don't do that.
So that's the same thing I recommend for driveways too.
Okay.
So when you do the $105 a ton, did that include gravel and grade, or is it recommended since we have that stuff?
Strictly, that was a hot mix number that was paid last year per ton. I don't know, I doubt that included.
I saw it
shoulder
installed,
gravel.
it said installed or something in there, caught my eye.
That
Yeah,
installed
fine.
the in-place paver and trucks, probably traffic control.
Right, but, so that was with us gravel and grading ourselves, within
Yeah,
1
no
inch or
prep
something.
Yeah,
We do the prep work and they do the paving?
yeah,
That's what I'm asking.
yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
Or you'll get a price for the prep work.
If
you're gonna do
if it was a
Right.
reclaiming number,
Yeah,
grind grade,
right, yeah.
that would
Different.
include your traffic control, your reclaimer, your grader, your roller. That would be a square yard price,
Okay,
250 or whatever it would be, but
Right.
something in that area.
yeah, the 105 a ton caught my eye and I just wanted to
Strictly
see.
hot mix only.
Yeah, okay, so.
Hot
we-
mix in place.
That's how I price too, I just do it, if I have to do it for a contractor, I just tell them, if you don't have it within 1 inch and I have to grade it more, then you're gonna get charged more.
Sure.
But otherwise, if it's one inch of final, then we'll fine grade it.
You got it.
So, okay.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Is it more cost effective to learn to fly?
Yeah.
I can tell
Jay,
you
you
no.
know,
Get your private license? Yeah, no. It's a process.
I'm just saying the birds have it like the easiest.
Well, once you get, it's the starter cost that'll kill you.
Pavement's expensive.
You have to
Right,
pay
some
that.
towns that don't have a lot of funding, they used to have pavement, they ground them all up and they went back to gravel completely and just used calcium chloride or magnesium chloride or some sort of dust control. And that's the way they do it, but they have, 12 miles total, and that's what they want.
Never have a clean car again.
So while we're on that, before we leave, this is a really important subject. If you have 20 miles of gravel road and you got 30 miles of pavement and you're struggling to find funding to maintain your 30 miles of pavement, do not pave any more of your gravel roads unless absolutely necessary, because you can't maintain what you have. Don't add to that list of paved roads.
I don't think that's anywhere in the radar.
It's just like understanding that as these roads get adopted, we're taking at town meeting, for example.
Yes.
Yeah.
If the taxpayers have to understand that they need to, you need to take that asset value and figure out what it is in order to keep it in good shape. So in other words, if it's a mile road, you've got to figure out what that cost is.
Yeah.
And then say, just so you know, your taxes are gonna go up on roads based upon that. That's, not that, it's not prudent to always think about taking these roads over, but there's a process for that. The other part is, as you probably maybe already do with your planning boards and make those checks and balances in there, so whether it be the highway department, DPW director, whoever it is does the inspections, or you have an outside contractor that's doing that, or the developer has to, provide a engineer's report as
They
to,
did,
yeah, we put down
they
this
were
much.
bonded for years and did all that, and it was the only development in 25 years that I know of that we took over. New development, I don't remember any others.
Spruce Burrow, they got one coming up, right?
Peak Vista,
Oh, Peak Vista, we took that
two
over.
up on Mallory,
Yeah, that was in,
and those in Ridgeview.
But those aren't private, this one started out as like a
that
hundred or
was,
something.
yeah, they started out that way, but as they before they even finished, they were like, oh, we're done with it, the town is
They still have all their people rules, like no chickens, no laundry outside, stuff like that. Yeah, they just don't do their own roads, yeah.
That's great. Like I say, if anything else comes up and you need more information, or a committee is meeting and they'd like to have more information, just reach out to these guys and, like I say, or you can take that information and call me direct, or Bruce direct, and certainly we'll help you out in any way that we can. That's what we're here for. That's what technical assistance is all about. I'll leave the thumb drive with Justin, or unless you wanna take it, or however it's easier, we'll leave it with Justin, and then if there's folks that wanna,
Joy wants to make
committees or
something out of
whatever,
it, she
wanna
likes doing
you
that.
see Justin,
Who do you work with? What paving company?
I work for, I mostly do, exterior construction,